government.
Very much, Corla. Can I begin by wishing you, as a female in the chair today, which is lovely to see as part of this debate, and everybody in the House, a happy International Women's Day. And could I also acknowledge one of the male parliamentarians in this House, and that is Senator Mark Daly. Because today we saw the unveiling, a very historic moment, of two trailblazers in this country with former Presidents Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese. And I have sat on the Paintings and Portraits Committee for the last 2.5 years with Senator Mark Daly, and he has really forged the way in having female representation around these walls, around the corridors of power, ensuring that we are represented and looking back at our history and ensuring that that continues. So I just want to thank him for that today. I am going to use my speaking time, Corla, to talk about domestic violence, and I will bring it back to my own, I suppose, constituency. But I do also want to acknowledge today the work of Mary McDermott, whom I'm sure Minister has knocked on your door very many times, and particularly her publication here of A Safe Place, Designing Centres for Domestic Violence Prevention and Response. And Mary, when you meet Mary, you know she thinks with her heart as much as her head, very passionate about this. And has done a huge amount of work, and I would recommend to anybody who is from one of those counties. There are 9 counties across this country that still do not have a safe haven for women who find themselves in those situations. There is a blueprint that we can all follow in Safe Ireland's publication here of A Safe Place. The programme for government acknowledged that there is an epidemic in domestic, homophobic and gender-based violence. I believe there needs to be a more integrated approach to combating domestic violence. The programme for government is committed to the development of domestic violence prevention strategy. We need to ensure that the response results in an integrated approach combating domestic violence rather than being compartmentalised in different parts of the state. We also need to ensure that sufficient funding is available to maintain or establish domestic violence shelters or homes in every county, so that women, their children and families will have an option of available and safe accommodation when they are exposed to domestic violence. At present, we only have 140 emergency beds across the country. We believe, and I believe, that we should have at least 400, and that our local authorities should work with service providers to provide the accommodation, and particularly in the 9 counties that there are no shelters in. I acknowledge, and we have to, I suppose, commend the work of An Garda Síochána, who play a central role in combating violence against women, particularly domestic violence. I believe that the Divisional Protective Service units within the Gardaí should be fully resourced and trained to combat this crime of domestic violence. Increased visibility by Gardaí in policing certain criminal activities has a strong deterrent effect, and I honestly believe that we should take the same approach in policing domestic violence across our country. Minister, as you are well aware, I have for long campaigned, I suppose, since I arrived here in the Dáil, that we would have that service and protection for women across Cavan Monaghan. And I know in your department and the work of TUSLA have now acknowledged and, I suppose, agreed that there's a number of beds available in terms of the funding that can be provided in delivering that. I want to acknowledge the work of a team, I suppose, that I've pulled together on this particular issue, and I want to acknowledge that the work they've done and their commitment to providing, but not just providing, delivering that service across Cavan Monaghan. I want to thank Aidan O'Reilly and Deirdre Searnock from the Department of Housing, Joan Mullen from TUSLA, Mary McDermott, CEO of Safe Ireland, Siobhan McKenna in Term and Domestic Violence Services in Monaghan, has done Trojan work for the last 2 decades, maybe longer, in protecting and providing women with a service and a safe place to go. Our Chief Superintendent in Cavan Monaghan and Louth, Garda Division Alan McGovern, Garda Inspector Niall McKiernan, and of course our Housing Authority Director of Services both in Monaghan, Niall O'Connor, and Bridie McBrearty in Cavan County Council, and Valerie Everward in TUSLA, who is also the lead person around this in Cavan Monaghan. They've been hugely committed. We've met on regular occasions. And Minister, I do believe that not only that, we can actually deliver in terms of having that safe haven for women. Sadly, and not unlike many other counties, we have had horrendous and horrific cases of violence against women and children, and some of those fatal. And I want to ensure, Minister, that over the very near future, the coming months and very near future in terms of, I don't want to be talking about 10 years or 5 years, really, really soon, because this is needed more than ever, that we do have that service. And I know that both Cavan and Monaghan are very committed to that. They've been looking at sites have been identified, and as I said, through that team who is being headed up myself, TUSLA, Safe Ireland, we can do that work. So I want to thank you for the work that you've done around this area too, because I know you've been hugely committed to it, and just to ask you that you put your full weight and support behind delivering that service across Cavan and Monaghan. Gormila Maigat.